aggressive on the offensive end, but this is the
It's the Beam. It is the Bay. It is Ryan in Sacktown on If You Don't Like That, joined by the one, the only Mr. Bay Area Sports Talk. Hell, he's a sandwich. Damon, should I call you Damon or 957? Damon Bruce, what's up?
It is an honor to be with you. It is an honor to be a sandwich at Ike's, who is always the sponsor of my channel. Ryan, good to see you again. I love the background here on the channel. I feel like we're talking in some sort of a King's comic book. Win this one tonight. So I'm just along for the ride. It's great to be here. Great to talk to you again. And we got a basketball game that's going to happen that probably should be more interesting than it's gonna be, but that's not our fault. We'll do our very best to make it interesting.
Yeah, we'll do our best to find the nuances in there, at least give you some entertainment before the ball tips off. We're brought to you, by the way, Damon. Ike's is awesome. If you're ever in the mood for a steak, don't forget, if you're in the California or the Northern California region, about Bennett's West Side Grill in Rockland. 3 locations in the greater Sacramento area. Go to Bennett's Restaurants.com. Prime cuts of seafood and steak. Incredible specials too, Damon. Their weekend brunch is my absolute favorite. Go check them out. Bennett'sRestaurants.com. Damon, where do I even start with this Warriors team? When I looked at them to start the season, I'm like, are they the blueprint for depth? Is that what it's supposed to look like on an NBA bench? In the last 10 games, it's fallen off the cliff.
It really has. You know, when we saw this, and it was a great start, you know, they broke from the gate in very impressive fashion, but they were playing with the rules of basketball. They're playing with the how this league works. And there's no such thing as a 13-man rotation. It's just not how basketball teams work, really, on any level of basketball. So eventually reality had to start creeping in. I think the reality that crept in was DeAnthony Melton injury, which meant more to the Warriors than anyone could have ever thought. Melton hadn't played long enough to become that important to the Warriors, but apparently he had. And you just had the rest of the league finally doing their scouting reports. And instead of just looking at the first 6, 7, 8 guys, now everybody's getting into the tendencies of, everybody. So the league caught up, and just natural basketball, I think, caught up with the Warriors. And there's no team in the world that has ever tried to have a 13-man rotation. It's insane. So lots of moving pieces. I think Steve Kerr needed some time to figure out what he's got with his moving parts. And the thing that they don't want to say out loud is they have looked at as many moving parts and as many combinations as possible, and none of them really fit. If they were being honest, they would say, we've seen enough to know that this doesn't fit well. And we've also seen enough to know that the right trade is a hard thing to just pull out of thin air. And I think we got a little paralysis by analysis, Ryan. That's what's going on.
Very interesting. So it must have drifted a little bit down west from here in Sacramento, because many Kings fans would say that's been the same problem with this front office for the last 2 trade deadlines. But you still got that guy, the one that wears number 30, and Father Time's starting to catch up to him, Damon. And in many ways, this Kings team, so the Warriors 5-5 in their last 10, the Kings 9-1 in their last 10. They're going different directions record-wise, but they're headed to the same decisions at this deadline, the same decisions at this summer. Take me into what the Warriors want to do around Steph Curry right now. What does Steph Curry want to do, Dame?
Well, Steph has got the right to call his shots. If he wants to sit here and die on the vine with the Golden State Warriors and, not force them to make a big trade to further bolster his chances right now, and not force his way out of town, if he's just sort of acquiescing to be a guy who's going to get paid handsomely to be the focal point of a team that's going nowhere quickly, like it feels like that's what's kind of being set up right here, right now. Like, Steph isn't just a good soldier, Ryan, he's the best soldier. Like, he will never say anything that's going to cross up the integrity of the brand or the team, or give any sort of public strife, any sort of oxygen. He's never going to say the wrong thing in the media moment. But it really does sound like He has given the Warriors permission to twiddle their thumbs in a year where they need to do something with some consequence. Now, I want to ask you a little bit about the Mike Brown situation.
Yeah, let's get it.
Obviously, we got a lot of history with Mike Brown down here. He's much admired. And I know that he was up in Sacramento when he was winning, NBA Coach of the Year. Mike Brown was supposed to be part of the solution.
Right.
And then all of a sudden, he was identified as part of the problem. And I didn't like the way it went down. But then all of a sudden, the Kings start playing better basketball once he's out of the room. So who was right? What happened there? Can you explain that?
Yeah, Damon.
It was the moment of drama that at least shook up the Kings, and the Warriors have yet to be able to manufacture their own moment of drama to shake up their season.
Yeah, it was the moment that caught a lot of fans off guard. If you look at the record when it happened, not a surprise. You get that extension. Most teams think, okay, we're going to have this coach for a couple of years. Not this owner. Not this owner, Damon. He is just a cut of a different breed. And quite frankly, the way it went down is something that I don't think Kings fans right now can separate. There's a difference, is what you said, the way it went down versus it going down. No issue with Mike Brown being fired whatsoever. It was an awkward dynamic to begin with. You got to think about Doug Christie, who had a relationship with the owner from broadcasting, who, when Luke Walton was hired, hey, we want this guy Doug Christie on the staff, Damon. So then you come around to Mike Brown. We want this guy Doug Christie on the staff. So whether or not it was the plan all along, it certainly came to fruition sooner rather than later. I will say this, whether you want to talk about buy-in from the players or you want to talk about just flat out bad coaching, this team was underachieving badly, yet the stats stayed steady. The net rating stayed up to say, you know what, they're playing maybe even a 6 seed if they get hot. But Mike seemed to just make things so complicated. I talked to somebody in the building that laid it out like this to me, Damon. They said, since Doug's taken over, it's like the guys go to a banquet hall and the servers, all you got to do is sit down. The servers are going to bring you your food. They're going to bring you their water. You're going to bring you anything that you ask for. You just have to ask for it. With Mike Brown, his scheme was more, hey, you're walking into the biggest buffet in Las Vegas. Where do you even start? So the complication of his scheme versus just the simplicity of what Doug Christie is asking these guys, they're thinking less and playing more. So was it the right decision? That's up for debate. Was it the right way to do it? Absolutely not. And
it's interesting that you said all that, because you said basically he took what was an overly complex Mike Brown situation and dumbed it down to the good of the team. I got a question about De'Aaron Fox. What is De'Aaron Fox's ratio of really good basketball player to kind of an asshole? Like, where's his ratio? Because is he the guy who didn't want to do the work for the hard system, and he was happier to do less of the work under Doug Christie? Like, dumb it down. I'm a natural athlete, so dumb it down. Basketball works better for me than systematic basketball, and is that why it's working now?
I think it's more of De'Aaron sees himself as something, and publicly he's a franchise dream. He holds himself well to the public. He stays out of trouble. Great guy to head the franchise from a player's standpoint. But behind the scenes, you don't know. We don't know what the real De'Aaron Fox is. I don't think it's so much that there was shade with Mike Brown. I think there was just certain things, Damon, that Mike wanted De'Aaron Fox to do. And at the core of it, I think De'Aaron thought maybe he could be utilized better in different ways. And maybe that push in the butt, maybe that autonomy that Mike had given the players in past years was pulled back, because now I've got my brand new shiny contract and I can dig my heels into the ground a little bit.
I get what wasn't he? I mean, he's a ball dominant guard. Like, what more do you want?
Well, that's the thing. You can't, Damon, can you win with just one ball dominant guard? So you look at Mike's rotation, you look at what he was trying to do with him and Sabonis. The question that I've asked everybody is, can the two of them make each other better? Do they? Sabonis makes Fox better. Fox does not make Sabonis better. So really, Mike Brown was running an offense, asking De'Aaron Fox to play point guard. And when he wasn't, he was asking Sabonis to play point guard. So you never had a natural point guard. You had two fish that were out of water and never in sync.
I mean, it sounds like the dysfunctional version of Steph and Draymond. You know, two guys who aren't natural point guards who need to facilitate offense.
No doubt.
Steph, you know, he needs to be everything. And that's why the Warriors are in trouble. Whenever you have a player who's about to turn 37, who's still the epicenter of everything that you do. And I'll tell you, the Boston Celtics and Joe Mazzulla on Martin Luther King Day just basically told the rest of the NBA how you play the Warriors. Put Steph in every single defensive action that you can muster. Not because he's a bad defender, but just to burn his gas tank.
Right.
Because there is nobody in this league, Ryan, who has to work harder to get open than Steph Curry. He is the hardest offensive presence in the NBA in terms of what he needs to do just to create space to get his own shot off. And by the time fourth quarters roll around, there's no gas left in Steph's legs. And if Steph doesn't have his legs, the Warriors don't have a chance.
No doubt. And that's only going to get a little bit worse as Father Time gets closer and closer. He's going to be 38 next season. So what's the fix there? What helps Steph take a little thing off of his plate? Is it a Giannis move, which some in ESPN have hinted at, maybe in the offseason? What's the player, Damon?
I mean, that's the $100,000 question. And it's the question that, you know, several general managers now, and Bob Myers and Mike Dunleavy Jr. have yet to really find the answer to. I mean, they even have kind of an answer in the room. No, not tonight because Jonathan Kuminga's hurt, but
right.
They can't even really commit to whatever they want to do with Jonathan Kuminga. You know, more than anything right now, Ryan, the Warriors are middled. They're middled in terms of a middle of the pack contender, a middle of the pack 500 basketball team. They're stuck in the middle of not, you know, they're a small team, but they don't play fast.
Right.
They've got a bunch of shooters, yet they're not knocking down enough shots to ever really space the floor. So if you don't have much of a perimeter game, you better be good in the paint. Well, they're not really good there either. They smoke more layups than any team you will ever see in your life. They're just bad around the rim. They don't have size. They're not a defense-first basketball team. They're just middled. They're as average as can be everywhere, and they remain a stationary basketball team with no one who's really identified as a ball handler outside of Steph Curry. Andrew Wiggins is supposed to be the guy who, when you need him to punch in and get that 35 and 14 game and really have a big night and carry the load, he never does it. But then he'll play well enough in a stretch to where the Warriors convince themselves, well, we can't get rid of him, but we can't really win with him either. So you're middled on Andrew Wiggins, who's supposed to be this asset and piece either for you or to trade, and they're middled there. And then you look at all their options. Do you really want to get in the Jimmy Butler business? I think Miami just suspended him again, not even an hour before you and I started this live stream together.
Missing a flight.
Jimmy, big face coffee. Come on, man. I like Bubble Jimmy selling $20 cups of coffee to NBA players. I don't like
Hustle.
this. I don't like this sticking his thumb up as you know what. I'm going to protest everything, Jimmy Butler. I like Jimmy Butler dunking on Minnesota Timberwolves in practice, Jimmy Butler. Not this Jimmy Butler. Anyway, I digress.
But you gotta fight fire with Pat Riley. He's no pushover.
Oh,
what's Jimmy gonna do?
In a war of wills, you will not outwill Pat Riley. Like Jimmy Butler's already a dead man walking. He doesn't even know it.
Has no idea.
Anyway, you know, what are the Warriors going to do? You're going to move all your assets for Vucevic? Is Vucevic going to be, you know, I mean, is this team a Vucevic away from an NBA title?
No.
I'd say it's more than that. Are you really going to give up a lot to get into the Zion business? I mean, Zion, when healthy, is so tempting, but I'm afraid he's going to hurt himself on the way to the introductory press conference should they make that trade.
Damon, he came into camp in the best shape of his life. No difference in the result. Incredible.
Some guys are just damaged goods, man.
Yeah.
They really are.
Yeah. Specialized sports, Damon. specialize. You play one sport your entire life.
There you go. You got you working a little hopscotch.
I mean, how many sports did you play growing up? I guarantee it was more than one.
First of all, I had Nintendo, I had PlayStation, and I had ColecoVision. So I was a multi-sport athlete.
Nice. Well versed.
No, look, Zion is just a freak in nature, and nature isn't his best friend. That's for sure. He's also lacking a little discipline when it comes to that big buffet that we were talking about earlier.
Yeah,
that's a part of it. And the Warriors, I think there's just, I really mean it, there's some paralysis by overanalysis. I think they've thought about everything so many times that they've spun themselves around that now they're just a little dizzy and they don't even know really what they're looking at. They don't know what they're looking at in terms of their own rotation, much less handicapping the right player on another team that could be the trade piece that they could go get. I mean, this offseason, there was an awful lot of talk about Lowry Markkanen. And then that market seemed to develop, and then it was a matter of, well, they don't want to come off of Brandon Pajemski.
Right.
For real? Like
Pajemski?
I mean, seriously? That's what held up that? You held up a Lowry Markkanen trade over your fear of Brandon Pajemski was one of those assets you just don't want to let get away. I mean, he might be a good player someday, but will he ever go to an all-star game? I don't think so.
Well, on top of that, what have we seen in the NBA the last 2 seasons? The best teams taking risks. The Boston Celtics taking risks. The New York Knicks taking risks. Now, Minnesota did as well, not working out too great. They're a point guard away, in my opinion, but the best are getting better. And I think that's part of what the Kings ran into, last trade deadline. They did not make any significant moves. Dallas, who's behind you in the standings, they pass you up and they make a couple of moves. They're in the NBA Finals. The year before that, the Lakers. And so the margin in this West, because the way I look at the West, Oklahoma City, lock them in, Damon. If they wanted to go out and get another player right now, they are in the best position to go get the best player, even though that they're stacked. You got Houston and Memphis, who I think will probably interchange, but then it's a little bit of a revolving door between 4, 9, 10. It's open for interpretation, not just this season, but probably for the next season and the season to come. So that's why the Steph decision, whether he stays there or he goes, or here in town, the big crossroads, can this team be better without De'Aaron Fox? Damon, you say trade De'Aaron Fox, people think you are loony here in Sacramento, yet the numbers bear it out. We have a combination on the floor that have played 101 minutes, and the numbers are over the roof better than what it is with De'Aaron Fox on the floor with the same other 4 players. And so the Kings, in some ways, are at that same crossroads that you're at. Do you make a move, give up a player, which 2 they're willing to give up in Trey Lyles and Kevin Huerter? Draft picks, a little bit iffy. But this whole thing about Fox wanting to win with his contract running out in a year and a half, it's like, we think we have some pieces to the puzzle that fit, but do we want to slide on those, give those away, and then still have Fox walk if it doesn't work out?
With all due respect to De'Aaron Fox's last season's clutch time performances,
it's
do not put De'Aaron Fox and Steph Curry in the same sentence.
I agree.
I'm not saying you are, but one has literally created billions of dollars of wealth for an owner by redefining a franchise to the point where the Warriors are now worth, it's the Dallas Cowboys and then it's the Golden State Warriors in terms of team worth in America, which is insane to say that out loud. Steph is the golden goose. He's hung the banners. He's the most important player in franchise history. This is a franchise that employed Wilt Chamberlain. So that's saying something, right?
Indeed.
At the same time, though, are you ready for it to end poorly? Because that's the writing that's kind of on the wall, unless something dramatic is made, unless a deal with the devil to give up some future. Here's the thing. It doesn't end pretty no matter how it ends. It either ends pretty. It doesn't end pretty. No, even if you win one more title, it still doesn't end pretty because after the title, people are going to say, well, now what? And then that won't end pretty.
Spot on.
It doesn't have to end like it did around Kobe. If the Warriors wanted to really nut up and be big boys, they would explore or at least entertain the option of saying, Steph, your last great act as a Golden State Warrior could be us trading you for the considerable value that you still have left at this point in your career to a contender for some assets that keep this thing going a couple of years from now. But I don't think they, A, want to do that, have the guts to do that, and Steph has earned the right to say, no, let's not do that, because he's done so much for this franchise. He's one in a million. I mean, he's the kind of player that you would sacrifice a few years for.
Sure.
Yet the Warriors right now are at that moment where they seem to not do that, and they won't do that. You know, I think Jonathan Kuminga is an interesting piece, but he's a basketball yawn compared to frickin' Steph Curry. Like
anybody's gonna be to a degree, Damon.
Yes.
Curry changed 2 positions, and he only played one of them.
That's a great way to say it. It really is. But it's the Warriors they have to start making definitive decisions and live with the consequences and not worry so much about everything being perfect. Like don't let a pretty good idea pass you by while you're waiting for perfect, because I don't think there is a perfect
right
to solve this Golden State Warrior problem. If you're telling me, all right, for the rest of the year, do absolutely nothing because Giannis maybe, that's a big freaking maybe to be hanging your hat on.
Huge.
That's a big maybe. Unless you got a little Steph, Giannis behind the scenes, Durant, Kyrie Irving, wink, wink in the
Old
tunnel.
days.
We all know what we're doing a year from now. Unless you got one of those under the table, don't worry about it to offer. In which case, you know, fans will just complain, but then the summer comes around, that trade is executed, and everyone goes, oh, good, you know?
Right.
But unless you got a backdoor deal to do something incredible like that, you got to do something more than just Dennis Schroeder, because Dennis Schroeder has made this team worse. And this is another one of those things. You know why you had to make the trade for Dennis Schroeder? Even though you gave up no real assets, it was the pick that was DeAnthony Melton. It was the contract of DeAnthony Melton and a couple of second rounders, right? It's no big deal. You do that deal for Schroeder. Yep. I don't hate the deal for Schroeder. But the deal for Schroeder put yet another reason why Moses Moody can't get his freaking break in front of Moses Moody. And I would have loved to have seen this team just say, you know what? Screw it. We're going to give 2 months to Moses Moody. We're going to live and die with the results. Game by game will not be a reevaluation of his allotted minutes. We aren't going to talk about magic. We're going to give Moses Moody 2 months, sink or swim. What you got? And he's in year 5 of his career, and he still hasn't gotten that.
Yeah. What do you got to lose? Why is he not a Kerr guy? Why doesn't Kerr give him that wink?
And it's so funny because all Steve Kerr will tell you about is how much he loves
He's
the
a
guy.
Kerr guy, yeah.
Lunch pail guy, and he never says a peep. That's the thing. The Warriors need a personality trait on the team somewhere in between. Draymond is punching teammates and never says a peep. Like, can we meet in the middle? Can we get somebody in the middle to either, do something more than not make a peep, yet not exactly start fighting on the practice court?
The meanest thing your star, the face of the NBA, can say to the public is Twitter fingers? Twitter fingers? What are Twitter fingers, Damon?
I don't know.
Steph Curry on national TV with Twitter fingers. Damon Bruce joining us here on the channel, getting you ready for the Kings and the Warriors. Last time the two teams met, Kings won by 30. Interesting thing about the Warriors over the last 10, Damon, they're either winning by 20.2, or they're losing by 20.2, or they're losing by 10.8, or winning by 10.8. Excuse me.
The Warriors have fallen behind by 30 or more points twice in their last 3 home games. In their previous 393 home games, that had only happened 8 times. It's happened twice in the last 2 games. Nearly 8 times over the previous 400. So if you're looking for the bottom of the pickle barrel, we're scraping our knuckles against it. It's right here. Steve Kerr just took the worst home loss of the Steve Kerr era, a 40-point loss to the Celtics. 85 points scored at that game are the fewest points scored in a game at home that Steph Curry has played in under Steve Kerr. So, the even-keeled approach to not getting bent out of shape about losses only goes so far. Eventually, you got to start pulling fire alarms because the house is burning. And that's what's going on with the Warriors. The Warriors are trying to professionally go through the ebbs and flows of a season here, but there have been a lot more ebbing the wrong way than flowing in the right direction lately. And they themselves, Ryan, not us, not the media, not me, not Tim Kawakami, not Anthony Slater or anything like that.
Right.
They have told us that this stretch of games that they're in right now, this 9-game stretch of games that they're in before the trade deadline this is it. Like, here it is. This is the force multiplier. This is the fork in the road. Here it is. We didn't identify it as the moment of time. They did, and they just got creamed.
Worse.
By the Boston Celtics.
40 points. Could not believe it. Not a player over 20 points in that game. That was insane. But to be fair, Steph rolled his ankle the game before. No Draymond. Not that it's going to make a massive difference.
No, that would make a massive difference. But here's the thing. So yet again, it's the most important part of the year, and older players are either hurt or unavailable. If that doesn't sound like a theme that you should be getting used to, I mean, that's a harbinger of things to come, is it not? I mean, this is...
I will say yes to a degree, but it's been the NBA the entire year. The NBA this year has been insanely injured, Damon. The Kings have gotten a taste of it. Other teams, now we just learned that Lively in Dallas is going to be out for at least a month with a reevaluation. So it's kind of the way of the NBA right now, my friend.
It is.
Injured players.
And here's the thing. They need, at Steph's point in his career, to play him less than ever. They need to be less Steph dependent than ever before, yet the exact opposite is playing out. They're more Steph Curry dependent than they have ever been. They're more Steph Curry dependent now, because Klay's not there to maybe bail him out of any situation. They never needed Steph to play 38 to 40 minutes more than right now, when asking him to do that is basically, death by overextension. So you can't do that.
100%. I think that is part of what came off the rails, or initially was a problem in this locker room in Sacramento. You had 4 of the Kings starters through the first 20 games in the top 12 in minutes played. I don't think they thought they would be playing that many minutes. Yes, they're basketball players. They want to get out and play as much as possible.
Who's coaching this team? Tom Thibodeau? I mean,
yeah, right. Exactly. And so I think Mike Brown to the media, talking to the guys, well, I'm still looking for my rotation. You got a perfectly good Keon Ellis for the most of the season sitting there, who really, for all intents and purposes, ended up being a little bit of a scapegoat, Damon, where if he made a mistake here, a mistake there, that's the guy who we need to hold accountable. And so minutes went up in the wrong places. Combinations kept getting tried. And I think there was a little bit of a degree with that burnout. So that's amongst 5. I can't imagine with Steph with 1. And what, you're going to turn to Buddy Hield? You're going to rely on him? We know how that goes here in Sacktown.
How's Christie's minutes distributions been?
Pretty good. Keon Ellis is kind of been that 6th starter almost. He's that multi-tool guard who surprisingly is shooting the ball at an incredible pace from beyond the arc, and he guards bigger than he actually is, and it's giving Mike Brown a little bit more leeway to get Fox some extra minutes off the court when needed. And to Doug Christie's credit, he's ridden the hot hand throughout much of these 11 games that he's been the head coach. There was a game where he kept Devin Carter, the rookie from Providence, in Boston, actually arguably the Kings' best game of the year, in lieu of bringing Keon Ellis back onto the court, and they were on the same page about it. So Christie is communicating with these guys on a very different level. There's a different level of buy-in, Damon, in this sense. He's not overcomplicating things. He's getting their back when it comes to giving them maybe a little bit more time off on the days off, maybe doing a mental practice and more film work, closer to that Rick Adelman model that Doug thrived in. And so that in turn has resulted in more results on the court. You're seeing the guys think less and play more, look fresher.
Last year's buzzword around the Golden State Warriors was connectivity. Steve Kerr would talk about a lack of connectivity that the team used to totally enjoy. And, I don't know if he was talking about the on-court connectivity or the off-court connectivity or Klay Thompson unplugging it or still the ramifications and residue of the Draymond Jordan Poole fiasco. But he kept on saying we're not connected anymore. This year, the Warriors have not been able to find the right connections on the court. And I think a big part of the disconnection is Steve Kerr. Steve Kerr's message is not being picked up and put down. It's not resonating within the team. You don't see Steve go to the whip hand very often, but he's gotten a little shorter with the media. He's gotten a little surlier. If he's doing that in practice, well, I can tell you that these have been some of the worst Warrior games we've seen this season, so that really ain't working. So then Steve will go back to what? The carrot. He'll go back to the sugar cube. He'll try to be the patient, Zen master Steve. That's not working. It just doesn't feel like this team has got it anymore. What is it? Well, if we knew, we would bottle it and we would sell it for a great profit. But we don't know. It's that undefinable. I believe the kids call it vibes. The vibes. The vibes around the Warriors are off. And they have been for a couple of years now. And not even the great Steph Curry can wave his magic wand and make it right again. And so that's why I think everybody's a little just panicked and bewildered. And why cannot we figure this out?
So, Damon, I don't mean to take you all the way back here, but I got to ask the question.
You want to talk about Vonteego Cummings? I mean, let's go way back.
Yeah, let's go. Get in your time machine. No, I won't take you that far back. But the punch with Jordan Poole and Draymond Green, do you think Steve Kerr lost any respect amongst the core for how that was handled? Is he looked at any differently with Draymond really getting suspended, but beyond that, no real repercussions?
How about this? I think that everyone's vision of themselves changed in that moment. And I don't know if there's an awful lot of blame or Steve handled that so wrong he lost the confidence of players A, B, and C. I just think the entire franchise was rattled by that moment. And when everyone looked in the mirror, everyone was sort of unimpressed by what had happened, how it was handled, surprised that it happened, where it happened, how it happened, not who did it. No one was surprised by that. We had to bet on who might have done that. All the money would have been on Draymond. We know that.
Plus 3,600
on DraftKings. And I think it created a crisis of confidence in the Golden State Warriors that they have yet to be able to dust themselves off of. Now, let's not also say that had that punch not been thrown, that they are better around the rim right now, that Jordan Poole is still on the team, making better strides than had Brandon Pajemski, who, all the butterfly effect of everything that's happened afterwards.
For sure.
I don't know how much of that changes with or without that moment, but that moment is a massive crisis point. And if you're looking for when's the first real crack in the armor, you got to go back to that day. And it's the Warriors have been a little weird ever since. Team Vibes has had funny vibes since that moment.
Bingo. I was going to say you can't quantify it on the court, but you can certainly do the math on how that could affect vibes.
And by the way, here's the thing. The reason why I don't think it's as crisis, it's like, this big moment that is redefined, the fork in the road of everything, because there's a lot of things in play here, including the natural life cycle of dynasties and father time. And there's a lot of things going on, and the league getting better around the Warriors, and them the Warriors had enjoyed a distinctive style advantage over the rest of the league that it no longer even comes close to existing. There are other teams who play more like the Warriors than the Warriors did when the Warriors were playing like the Warriors. So there's a lot that has gone into why it doesn't work. Dude, there's dudes getting punched in practice around the NBA all the time. You just don't find out about it. You know what I mean?
No doubt.
That's the thing. Like it wasn't like that moment rattled them to their core. The whole public display was just a massive like, oh, you know what, it's the Seinfeld episode where the girl looks really good in one bit of lighting, but in the other lighting, she's not that attractive. And the Warriors finally got exposed to the bad lighting. And that, I think, is what changed the perception of the franchise. Again, there's dudes knuckling up in practice all the time.
Doubt. Back in the 70s, the 80s, are you freaking kidding me?
That's how you said hello. That's how you asked a guy to lunch.
100%.
So,
100%.
Yeah, but it's absolutely a moment. I mean, when we sit down to tell the story, if you leave that part out, you got the story wrong.
Yeah, no, I hear you. Yet Draymond stays Draymond, still doing his things off the court, hurting the calf. He's out tonight along with Pajemski, Kuminga, and a host of others. Kings healthy tonight for the first time in a while, so we'll see how Doug uses the rotation. Trade deadline upcoming 3 weeks away. Damon, so not only do you do the Warriors, most of the audience here on If You Don't Like That knows that, but have you become more of a therapist than a sports guy after this Niners season? Or do you have your PhD yet? Are you licensed?
I'm giving everybody Xanax and telling them to stop shooting mother mob bosses. Yeah, man, it was a rough year for the 49ers. And if you thought that you could quickly pivot to the Warriors to start making you feel better as a baseball fan or a basketball fan, that's not going to happen. No. Baseball's around the corner. I don't know if the Giants are going to have that much fun of a summer, and the A's are nowhere to be found. Oh no, excuse me, I know exactly where they are.
Light the beam! Light it!
They want their own beam, Damon. They want their beam.
Yeah, give them a beam. I'll tell you what, Lacob's not going to pay for a good one. So it's going to be like a D-cell battery-powered beam. Like he'll probably just get one of those really, really bright flashlights. Make some security guard point it up at the end. Here's your beam. But no, did I say Lacob? I meant Fisher. Pardon me,
Fisher.
I'm in Warriors mode there. But yeah, it's a rough time in Bay Area sports. It's funny. The team that has got the worst record is the only team that's really pointed in the right direction right now, and that's the San Jose Sharks. They tore it all down to the studs to rebuild. They're not supposed to be good right now. They aren't good right now, but they're where they are planned by their own designs to be in their life cycle. I don't think the Giants ever saw the Dodgers coming over the top with $1 billion worth of Japanese assets. I don't think the 49ers ever saw themselves falling as quickly from the perch as they were just standing on last Super Bowl. And I know that the Golden State Warriors are floored with the way that this season has developed, especially after the start that they got off to. So it's grab your nuts and make a choice time for the Golden State Warriors. Because this trade deadline was a February 6th, Ryan? Is that right around the corner?
Yeah, right around the corner. We're just a couple weeks away.
Yeah. I mean, do you have the balls to make the trade for Zion? Or do you have the guts to basically say, all right, we're dead on arrival this year. We're stowing it all to board the good ship Giannis in the offseason? Do you have the guts to play that waiting game with a growingly frustrated fan base? It's going to be interesting couple of weeks, man, for both teams. It's really interesting.
Incredibly interesting. Let me ask you this, since you brought up trade deadline. We've talked about the Kings and the Warriors. On that point, what do you expect this trade deadline to be like this year? A lot of names floating around. A lot of times it can be a bust. Something tells me there's going to be moves this year, Damon.
I think Zion is the linchpin for everything, right?
He's the fall guy. It starts after him.
That's the most upside attached to the most distressed asset as there is in the game.
Yeah, it's a good point.
Who has the guts to take that chance? And will they be rewarded for it or laughed out of the gym with a million I told you so's? Some kids just like eating Tootsie Rolls and you can't do anything about it. And
100%.
So but man, he's been playing some unbelievable basketball since he's been coming back. It looks like he's auditioning for what his future might be. I don't think there's much going to happen with Jimmy. Let me tell you, I think Jimmy Butler is going to die on the vine. I think that the Miami Heat will not trade him and get rid of his expiring contract at the end of the year. That's what I think is going to happen. Again, Pat Riley will sink Jimmy Butler out of spite.
Oh, it's Pat freaking Riley.
Yeah.
Guy's incredible. I would not like if you had to put a poker table together of sports figures. I don't want Pat Riley anywhere near my table. I don't know whether that guy's gonna have aces or 7-2 offset.
I'm telling you, this upstate New York, he's
crazy.
active. So I went to Pat Riley's high school, so I've
Oh,
always been
okay.
a Pat Riley guy.
Okay.
He's Schenectady tough, which
Oh,
means
okay.
he might have, like a bat day bat from Yankee Stadium in the back of his car, or maybe he just wants to talk. I don't know. Maybe we'll figure it out.
Could be a big guy.
But, I think Vucevic is an interesting look. The Warriors should trade for Vucevic. They wouldn't have to give up too many assets to do it. He is the stretch five that they need. There's no way for them to reinvent themselves on the fly dramatically. So if you're going to play small ball with a stretch five, see if that can get some looks for someone named Steph Curry, and see if somebody can knock down a shot other than Steph Curry. But it really doesn't matter what they do, Ryan, if Buddy Hield is going to be a 28% three-point shooter the rest of the damn year. I mean, Buddy Hield, I thought for a minute there had a chance to be the perfect Golden State Warrior, and then he just forgot how to shoot the three ball.
Well, he's a guy that's never embraced his role for the most part. He thought he was a star here in Sacramento, was not, had trouble other places. And it seemed like here from afar, we're like, damn, he's embracing that 6-man role. And then the defense closed up. And then film got out on how the Warriors are playing, which is an interesting thing about the Kings right now because they're playing so simplistic. It's so straightforward, not much to it. A lot of people here in Sacramento ready to run through the wall, Damon, for Doug Christie. The team appears ready to run through the wall for Doug Christie, but the adjustments on the X's and the O's kind of begin to be that big question. And I wonder with our run right now, how that is going to be played out 20 games from now when there's more film on how this Kings team is playing. We saw almost a blueprint put on paper by Milwaukee where they spread the Kings out and showed that weakness. And much like you said about rushing Steph earlier in the show, kind of the buddy thing, teams figuring out the back end of the bench once there's some tape on them. I wonder how that's going to play out for the Kings here in the next few weeks.
Well, the NBA has baked in 45 games where half the league ain't even playing hard, and we're almost through them. Almost through them. So, we're the real basketball teams in this league are about to stand up. Those who we're going to start seeing what this league looks like in between the All-Star game and Valentine's Day, and we're almost at that point in time where the boys start pulling away. The men start pulling away from the boys. So this is, there's no reason why the Warriors, no wondering why the Warriors have circled these 9 games, that they're in right now. And I'm sure the Kings got them circled too. Every franchise is circling this week and a half of basketball is, all right, show us who you are, because the deadline's right here. So if you got it, show it to us, because we need to see it, or your ass
no doubt.
might get traded.
And to a degree, I think there's a number of Kings fans that are thinking, well, I hope Vivek and I hope Monty McNair, who his hands aren't clean in this entire process either. I think he's kind of stood by idle at times and not made a move when maybe moves were there to be made to slowly improve the team. But this 9-1 run, we all know, or a lot of us believe, this team still is not good enough. So it's not about the guy we're going to get or could get that takes him over the top this year. That guy ain't out there, Damon. He ain't out there.
Which billionaire, former venture capitalist is the more meddlesome NBA owner? Joe Lacob or Vivek Ranadive?
100%. Vivek Ranadive. Hey, you know Joe better than I know Vivek, but I would say Vivek.
See, here's the thing. Even if Joe is pulling more levers than he should, he at least stays in the background. He's still the guy behind the curtain, operating the Wizard of Oz, where Vivek has pulled back the curtain saying, I am operating the Wizard of Oz.
There's times where Vivek rolls up courtside to his seats right there, smack center court. You'll see him there probably tonight with some B-list celebrity. And I'm like, I thought that person was dead, Damon. Who the heck? He's alive still? I mean, it's all a show for the fans. And, but again, going back to the Mike Brown thing, how you have Monty fire him and have Monty start those conversations. It's just Vivek putting pressure on the wrong places. And ultimately now you have in Doug Christie, who's doing a very good job communicating with these guys, and they're playing hard. But you have the guy who was fourth on the bench, but was number one to the owner in terms of access, in terms of having his ear. So to a degree, that's got to worry you a little bit.
Doug Christie's a politician, man.
Dude.
He is. I mean, for a guy whose wife didn't trust him, I think you got Doug Christie's a guy you want to keep an eye on when you're sitting next to Doug Christie,
similar
right?
circumstances to another situation I remember. Too much, not enough time to get into it, but.
And if you don't like that,
you don't like NBA basketball. Hey, brother, I can't thank you enough for joining us here tonight on If You Don't Like That, talking some Kings, talking some Warriors, getting ready for this game tonight. Make sure you go become a member of the Plus. Scan that QR code. Check out Damon's incredible Niners, Warriors, and also Giants content, and just great work. Your channel has absolutely exploded this year. It's been so cool to see the work you've done with.
I appreciate it, Ryan. I appreciate you having me on. Thanks so much. Let's do it again. Let's talk around the deadline when maybe there's some news about either one of these teams. It's always a pleasure to join you. Thank you for having me tonight. Thanks for running this co-stream from your side of the NBA universe up in Sacramento. I really do appreciate it, brother.
Sounds good. And as for the rest of you, thank you so much. Huge thanks to Bennett's Westside Grill. Go to Bennett'sRestaurants.com. Prime cuts of seafood and steak for Damon, Bruce, Ryan, and Sacktown. We will see you soon. Enjoy the game.